Okay, everybody here now?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get started then. First of all, before we get started, I need you to raise your hand if you've ever watched TV before. Okay, good. You can put your hands down. Now, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever watched the news on TV. Okay, you don't have to say anything, just raise your hand. Good, you can put your hands down. Now I want you to raise your hand if you've ever watched Channel 2, which is the news station where I work. It's WESH TV, the NBC station. Raise your hand. Good, lots of you have. Okay, put your hands down. Now I want you to raise your hand if you've ever seen me on TV before doing the weather. Oh, good, lots of you have. I know, I think some of you watched me this morning on TV, so I'm very excited about that. Okay, you can put your hands down. The best chance you have to actually see me on TV is to watch early in the morning before school starts. I actually get to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. My alarm clock goes off at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's what time I have to get up and get ready and take my shower and get all ready for work and go in. Because the news starts in the morning at 4:30 a.m. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have to do before I can go on TV to tell you about the weather. So I can't just walk in at 4:20 and the news starts at 4:30 and start talking about the weather if I don't know what I'm talking about. So there's some things I have to do before I get there, which is why I have to get up so early, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Some of the behind the scenes things that I do at Channel 2 that you never really get to see, because the only thing you get to see is what is actually on TV every day. Now, there's actually 5 of us that work in the weather office, so I work in the morning, but we also have a meteorologist who works during the day, another one who works at night, another one who works on the weekends, and then another one who kind of helps fill in, and then also goes out to the coast and does a lot of like weather reporting at the beach when we have a hurricane or when we have rip currents or something like that. So there's actually 5 of us, and the things that I'm going to talk about today about my job are kind of all the same thing that we all do, the meteorologists at Channel 2, when we are at work and when we're preparing for our job, okay? And I love that the fans are coming out. Thank you. You guys feel a little warm? All right. Just a little. Well, here comes the air. Awesome. Okay, so I'm at work. I have 2 parts to my job, okay? The first part of my job is super, super easy. Any of you could do this part of my job, even if you'd never studied weather in 2nd grade, even if you hadn't studied weather in 5th grade, even if you hadn't been to high school or college to learn about the weather. It is so easy you could do this part of my job, and that is to tell people what the weather is like right now. If I said to you, what's the weather like right now? What would you say? How would you answer? How would you answer? Sunny. How do you know it's sunny? I see you looking around, right? You look out the window, right? Have you been outside today? Yeah. Have you gone out? Have you seen the sky? Have you felt how it feels on your skin? Right? As long as you can go outside or look outside, you can feel on your skin. Does it feel hot? Does it feel cold? Is it raining? Is it cloudy? Is it sunny? What's the weather like right now? So that's the easy part of my job, as long as you can go outside or look outside. It's the second part of my job that's a little bit harder. This is the part of my job that I spend the most amount of time on, and this is the part of my job that's the most challenging, and that is to tell people what the weather is going to be like in the future. Now at Channel 2, we do a 7-day forecast. So that means when I go on TV, not only do I have to tell you what the weather's going to be like today, but I have to tell you what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, and the next day, 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 for 7 whole days. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how I figure that out, what it is that I do, what some of the tools are that I use to figure out what the weather's going to be like for the next 7 days. I can't just go on TV and make stuff up, even though sometimes people think that's what we do. We really don't. We're really telling you what we think the weather is going to be like for the next 7 days, okay? So the first thing that I do is I ask myself some questions. These are 3 things that everybody wants to know about the weather every single day. It's probably the reason that you watch the weather in the morning on TV, or listen to it on the radio, or maybe read it in the newspaper to see, will it be blank or blank, blank or blank, blank or blank. 3 things that everybody wants to know about the weather every single day. What do you think one of these things is? What's something that you want to know about the weather every single day? Yes. What would you like to know about the weather? Will it be sunny? Okay, very good. How about will it be sunny, or what's the opposite of sunny? Kind of like what it is outside today. Yes. Okay, you could say stormy. I would think of something not quite as descriptive. Something a little less descriptive. The opposite of sunny. Yes. Cloudy, very good. How about that? Does that work? You do have clouds when you have storms, don't you? So, will it be sunny or will it be cloudy? That's number one. And we'll write it right here in our blanks. Okay. What is something else that you want to know about the weather every single day? Another question. Will it be what or what? Yes, in the green. Okay, will it be rainy? So how about instead of saying rainy, we say wet? And what would the opposite of wet be? Dry. Very good. Will it be wet or will it be dry? Now, some of you have been studying weather, I know. How many of you have learned about the big fancy word precipitation? Who knows what precipitation is? Raise your hand. Good. Lots of you know that word. What is precipitation? If I said to you, it's precipitating outside today, what does that mean? What is it doing? Yes? It's raining. Or what else might it be doing if it's precipitating? Yes?
It may be raining.
Yes, we know that it might be raining. What else might it be doing if it's precipitating? Yes? Hail. Okay. What else? Okay, a tropical storm would have rain in it, right? So you'd certainly get precipitation in a tropical storm. Other kinds of precipitation maybe you've learned about, maybe you haven't. Yes, right here. Uh-huh. Tornadoes usually have rain with them in storms, but that's not specifically a kind of precipitation. There's something else that I'm thinking of. And I'll give you a hint. It doesn't happen very often in Florida because it's too hot here. Yes. Snow. Who is going to say snow? Yes, very good. Okay. So, we have rain, we have hail, we have snow, we have sleet, we have freezing rain, we have freezing drizzle. What are those things? Those are all kinds of precipitation, but what are they? Are they rocks? Are they dirt? What is that stuff? Yes. Uh-huh. What's it made out of? Not dirt, not rocks. What's precipitation made out of? Water, exactly. And this water is coming from where? Yes, the sky, but what in the sky is that water coming from? Yes. The clouds, very good. You guys have been learning so much. I'm so proud of you for what you've been paying attention to in your second grade class. Precipitation is any kind of water that comes from the clouds. And precipitation is what we're talking about, big fancy word that just means it's going to be wet. When we say, will it be wet or dry, we're talking about, is there going to be any water that falls from the sky today? Or is there not going to be any kind of water that falls from the sky today? Okay, so that's what we're talking about with wet or dry. All right, let's go to number 3. Our last question, will it be blank or blank? What is one other thing that you want to know about the weather every single day? Something that you probably listen to the weather report in the morning just to find out if it's going to be blank or blank. Yes? Uh-huh. Very good. Will it be hot? What's the opposite of hot? Everybody together? Very good. Will it be hot or will it be cold? Now, who cares? Why is it so important for you to know in the morning if today is going to be hot or cold? Why do you need to know that information? Why is that important to you? Yes? So you can dress properly, right? What if it's super hot, middle of summer, one of those days that's just so hot you just don't even want to move or get out of the shade from under the shade tree, and you decide to go outside wearing your big winter coat, your hat, your mittens, your boots? Think you'd be a little warm? You'd probably pass out from heat exhaustion, right? What if it's the middle of winter, one of those really cold days where when you breathe, you can see your breath and you can see the frost on your windshield and maybe on the grass, and you decide to come to school wearing what you're wearing today? No coat, no hat, no mittens. Probably be a little chilly, don't you think? So yeah, it's important, right? It's important that we know what it's going to be so we can prepare for the day, so we can know what the weather's going to be, so we can take an umbrella or not take an umbrella, or wear the right clothes, right? Or if you have activities planned outdoors to know if it's going to rain or not, okay? So this is kind of the three big things that I try to talk about when I'm on TV. This is really the most important part of my job when I'm on TV, is answering these questions. If I don't answer these questions when I'm on TV, that means I'm not doing my job. So I have to tell you when I'm all done talking if it's going to be sunny or cloudy, wet or dry, or hot or cold, okay? Now, the next thing we're gonna do for the next couple minutes is I just wanna share with you some of the tools and instruments that I use in order to answer these questions, okay? And we're gonna kind of go out of order, so stay with me here, because we're actually gonna start with number 3 and go backwards. Number 3 is, will it be hot or will it be cold? I have a whole bunch of computers at Channel 2 that help me do my job. And I get lots of information about the weather on these computers. Now, some of the information I get, you guys can look at just by going on the internet and looking up certain weather maps and what's happening in the sky and in the atmosphere. Now, some of the maps that I get, I print them out on big pieces of paper because I like to have them on paper so I can make notes and draw on them and stuff. And on these maps, it's a picture of the United States, okay? And there's all these lines, numbers, letters, symbols. If you looked at this map and you had never, seen it before, you would think that a baby had taken a marker and just sort of scribbled all over it, because it just looks like a bunch of lines and numbers and symbols, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But one of the things I learned when I went to college to study about the weather is what all those numbers and letters and symbols mean that are on the weather map. One of the weather symbols, I know you've all seen if you've ever watched the weather on TV before, and you may have studied about this when you were learning about the weather. It's a symbol that's usually blue, if you have a color TV, of course, and it is a little half circle, has little points on it, little triangles, kind of looks like a sun, but it's not. This is a weather symbol, and it has a name. Does anybody know what the name of that weather symbol is? Have you ever seen one of those before? Yes. Uh-huh. You forgot. Anybody think they know what this weather symbol is called? The blue line with the triangles on it. Yes. A what? Nope. But that's a pretty good guess, though. The wind current. Yes.
The blue triangle that for cold and the red triangle are for hot.
Nice, you're onto something there. The blue color means something. We draw this symbol blue because what color is usually on your faucet at home that's the blue side? The cold side. And what color is the warm side? Usually red, right? Because the blue is for the cold and the red is for the hot. So yes, the blue color means something. This weather symbol is called a cold front. Ever heard of a cold front before? Who's heard of a cold front? Raise your hand. Good, lots of you have. Okay, this is called a cold front. Do you know what a cold front is? If you saw a cold front on a weather map on TV, do you know what it would be telling you about the weather? This one you might be able to even just guess. Yes? Okay, she's saying that it means that it's going to be cold. That's absolutely right. A cold front, all it is this big blob of cold air. It's this big area of cold air, okay? So if you see a cold front on a weather map, all it means is that there's this big blob of cold air back here, and you can actually tell which direction that cold air is moving by looking at the cold front. Who thinks they know which direction that cold air is moving? Take your finger and point to the direction that you think the cold air is moving on this weather map. Okay, good. Most of you are pointing this way. If you're pointing this way, you are correct. Why are you pointing that way? What makes you think that the cold air is going that way? Yes. Uh-huh.
It's like
Who's answering? Okay, yes, go ahead.
because the cold weather, the wind is really strong, so it's pulling it that way.
Okay, but how do you know by looking at this picture that it's blowing that way? You're right, it is going that way, yes.
From the arrows,
From the arrows. You see these little triangles? We don't just draw them on there because they look cool. They actually mean something about the weather. And if you see a cold front, it means that all this cold air is blowing this way. They're sort of like little pointers, little arrows saying, okay, here's the cold air, and here's the way that it's blowing. So let's say that I can go into my computer, and I can actually do this because I can get weather information from all over the world on my computer, and I can find out what the temperature is in different cities. I can find out what the wind is doing, what direction it's blowing from. I can find out if it's raining, if it's cloudy. So let's say I go in my computer and I look up Apopka, okay? And I see that in Apopka right now it's 80 degrees. I don't know if that's true, but we'll just pretend, okay? It's pretty warm in Apopka. And then I go in my computer and I look up, let's say, Tampa, a city on the other side of Florida, okay, which would be like over here. Okay, so Tampa's on the west coast of Florida, and let's say in Tampa right now it's 70 degrees, okay? It's cooler in Tampa, right? It's 70 in Tampa, it's 80 in Apopka. Now, would my forecast for today be, it's 80 degrees right now in Apopka, we're headed to a high of 90 this afternoon. Would that be my forecast based on this map?
Yes.
Who says yes? Who says no? Fewer no's, but the no's are correct. Why would that not be my forecast? Don't know, you were just guessing? Why is that not my forecast? Yes? Exactly. Look where the cold air is, guys. The cold air already went through Tampa and cooled Tampa down to 70 degrees. Now where's it headed? Right this way. So is it going to get warmer here? No. Is it going to get colder here? Yes, exactly. And that's one of the things that happens in the wintertime when it's really warm and then the next day it's really cool because a cold front came through the state of Florida and brought us some much cooler air. So that's one of the first things I look at to figure out if it's going to be hot or cold. I look at my weather maps and I say, okay, where is the cold air and where is it moving? And that helps me figure out if it's going to be hot or cold. So there's another weather symbol, and since we already talked about this a little bit, I bet you'll never guess what this weather symbol is called. Since it's shaded in red and it has little half circles on it, what do you suppose that weather symbol is called? Yes? A hot front, almost. It's actually, you'd think it would be, right? But it's actually called a warm front, so just about a hot front. So this is a warm front, and I bet you'll never guess what kind of air it is. Who knows what kind of air it is? Yes? Okay, it's right in the name. Is it cold air? Is it warm air?
Yes.
That's right, it's warm air. So all the warm air, which way is it pointing? Which way is it moving? Take your finger and point to the direction it's moving. Good, most of you are pointing up because look at the little half circles. Remember, those are our little arrows, and those little half circles are pointing north, pointing up toward Apopka. So now let's say I go in my computer and I look up Miami. And Miami's way down here in South Florida. And I see in Miami it is 90 degrees. Okay? Now would I say we're warming up to 90 in Apopka today? Probably, right? Because the warm air already went through Miami and made it 90. And now where's it headed? Right this way. So is it going to get colder here now?
No.
No. Is it going to get warmer here now?
Yes.
Yes, because the warm air is headed right this way. Very good. So, one of the first things I do is see where the cold air is and where the warm air is to figure out if it's going to be hot or cold. Now, here's the thing. There are some other things that I have to look at because maybe the cold air won't make it all the way to Apopka. Maybe the warm air will move in a different direction. Maybe it will stop before it gets all the way to the Apopka. There's other things I have to look at, but one of the first things I do, one of the things that I learned when I was in college learning about the weather is to figure out if it's going to be hot or cold, I use cold fronts and warm fronts. Now, when we're all done today here, after I go through these other things, we're going to review all together, and I'll give you a hint. The answer to the question when I ask you, what is it that I use? This is like the answer to the test. So if you're not listening, you want to pay attention to this part. If I ask you, what do I use to figure out if it's going to be hot or cold? You're going to say cold fronts and warm fronts, okay? Tuck that away in the back of your brain because we're going to pull it back out in just a couple of minutes, okay? All right. Next thing, remember how I said we were going to go out of order with my questions? We figured out hot or cold. I want to go to number 1 next. So jump with me up to number 1 with your brain to figure out, will it be sunny or will it be cloudy? I have another tool that I use, and let's see, I kind of want to, let me do something real quick here. I have another tool that I use to figure out if it's going to be sunny or cloudy. And this is something that I know you've all seen if you've ever watched the weather on TV before. This is something that shows clouds, okay? So sometimes we'll show the state of Florida, and sometimes we'll show the whole United States, and sometimes this is what we'll use to show hurricanes. How many of you have ever seen a hurricane? And my drawing isn't very good, but you see like the center of the hurricane, if it's a big storm that has an eye, and then you'll see all the clouds kind of rotating around the hurricane like this. And sometimes you'll see some of the clouds kind of streaming out like this. Does anybody know what that's called? That cloud picture that we show on TV? It's kind of hard if you haven't learned this before. It starts with the letter S. Does that help or hurt? Yes. What's that? Not sure? Anybody think they know? Yes.
Storm.
No, but good guess. Yes. No? Yes. Yes, it has a name. It's a picture of the clouds. Does anybody know what the name of that is? Yes. Not sure? Okay, I'm going to write it on the board and see if you know what this, see if you've seen this before. It starts with an S. Anybody ever heard that word before? What is it? It's a satellite. Now, does that sound familiar? You think you've heard of a satellite before? You've probably heard of a satellite because you maybe have heard of satellites for your cell phone or for your TV or for other cool things. But there are actually weather satellites too. And the weather satellite's main job is to take pictures of the clouds. So what happens is you have the Earth, pretend like my fist is the Earth right here, okay? And up above the Earth, you have the clouds, right? Because the clouds are in the atmosphere up above the Earth. Up above the clouds is the satellite. And the satellite sits up there and it points back at the Earth. It sits in space and it orbits with the Earth and it takes pictures all day long. So as the clouds move, I get pictures of the clouds and I can look at them on my computer. So let's say I get a picture of the clouds at 10 o'clock in the morning and they're right here, okay? At 10:30 they're here, at 11 o'clock they're here, at 11:30 they're here, at 12 o'clock they're here, at 12:30 they're here, and so on throughout the day. I can go back in my computer and I can say, okay, where were the clouds at 10 o'clock this morning? Where have the clouds moved? Where are the clouds right now? And where does it look like the clouds are going to be later today? So now let's say I go into my computer to look at the satellite pictures and I see this whole big area of clouds over Tampa, okay? But I look out the window in Apopka and I see nothing like today. Let's say I see total blue sky, sunshine, not a cloud in sight. Is my forecast going to be for sunshine all day today?
Yes.
Who says yes? Only a few. Who says no? The no's are correct. Why? Why are we not going to be totally sunny all day today? What's going on? That's right, because see all these clouds? The clouds are all part of the cold front, and the clouds are headed where? Right this way. So is it going to stay sunny today? No. Is it going to get cloudy today? Probably. Now remember, things can change. Maybe the clouds will fall apart before they get here. Maybe the clouds will move in a different direction. There's some other things I have to look at, but one of the first things I do to figure out if it's going to be sunny or cloudy is, remember, answer to our test later, I use the satellite pictures to figure out if it's going to be sunny or cloudy. Now, you guys can look at the satellite pictures on the internet, too. That's not something that we own at the TV station. The government is in charge of the satellites, and they're in charge of those pictures. And so if they break, they have to fix them. So we don't do that. But just at the TV stations, we can look at the satellite pictures. And you know, when I was in college, I had to take a whole class on satellite pictures, and you can learn so many things about the weather just by looking at pictures of the clouds. The shape of the clouds tell us about the weather, the size of the clouds, the color, how high up in the sky they are, how close to the ground they are. Lots of different things we can learn about the clouds or about the weather just by looking at the clouds. Have you ever laid on your back in the middle of a nice day and looked up at the sky and just watched the clouds? Anybody ever done that? It's kind of cool. You should try it sometime. There's so many different colors and shapes, and it's a really cool thing. Sometimes doesn't it just seem like you could jump up and touch one of the clouds? Because it just seems like it's so close. How many of you have ever flown on an airplane through the clouds? So cool, isn't it? Because you just start flying and it looks like you're gonna hit the cloud, and then all of a sudden you're just inside of it, and it's just like a vapor and it's gone. So the clouds are really a cool thing to look at, but they also tell us a whole lot about the weather too, and they help me figure out if it's going to be sunny or cloudy. Okay, one more thing on our list, and then we'll be done with all of our questions here. Will it be wet or dry? This is a question that I have to answer using a tool that, again, I know you've all seen if you've ever watched the weather on TV before. And this is something that shows the rain. In fact, if you were watching this morning, I showed it all morning long because it was all a bunch of rain we were looking at. And it shows the rain as big green blobs. Now, if it's a thunderstorm or heavy rain, maybe it won't be green. Maybe it'll be yellow or orange or red if it's a big thunderstorm or maybe a tornado. Does anybody know what that's called? Starts with the letter R, but the R doesn't stand for rain. It's another kind of tool that starts with an R. Yes?
No, I forgot what
Oh, you forgot. Yes. Radar. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Have you heard us talk about the radar before? Okay, I'm going to write that right up here. Our board's getting messy, but I'm going to write it right here. R-A-D-A-R. Put a box around it so we can see it a little better. The radar. At Channel 2, we have a radar right in our backyard. If you've ever driven down I-4 and at the Lee Road exit, kind of on the north side of Orlando, that's where my TV station is. And the way you know it's my TV station, it's a big giant building that has a 2 on the side of it, and that's Channel 2. And that's the building where I go to work every day. Now, next to that building, there's a big giant tower that has a big ball on the top of it that says Super Doppler on the side of it. It kind of looks like a giant golf ball sitting on top of a tower. It's really not a golf ball, it just kind of looks like that. Now, if you were to open up that big giant ball, on the inside of that is our radar. Now, the radar is kind of like a gun. Now, it's not a gun that shoots bullets, but it's kind of like a gun because what it does is it shoots out invisible radio waves, okay? So all day long, the radar is shooting out these invisible waves. It spins around in a circle, and basically those invisible waves are looking for rain. Okay? Now, the waves are invisible, which means you can't see them. So all you see is this big old tower with this big ball on the top, and it just looks like it's sitting there. You can't see the radio waves that are shooting out of the radar, but they really are shooting out, and they're looking in the sky for rain. Where's Mrs. Byerly? Can you pick me a volunteer to come up and help me real quick? Maybe somebody who did extra special on a job or a test or something recently. The pressure's on. And it,
Nick J, over there.
who's Nick J? All right, come on up here. Nick J, is that your first and last name, or are you just Nick? Or is Nick J your whole name?
It's just Nick.
Just Nick. Okay, Nick is my helper today. Thank you, Nick. You can stand right here. So it's an easy job. All you got to do is stand here and look cool. You think you can do that? I think you can do that. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. So Nick's going to help me explain to you the way the radar works, all right? So let's pretend, you know how you can get those little gun things to put on the end of your garden hose and it makes the water shoot out really, really fast, like if you're going to, wash your car or the sidewalk or something? Okay. Let's say I have one of those and I have this gun thing on the end of the garden hose and the water's shooting out really, really fast to the hose, okay? And we're standing out in the backyard. Now, Nick sees me, and yeah, it's kind of hot today, but he doesn't really feel like getting all soaking wet with the water. So he sees me spinning around with this hose, and he's like, I don't think I really want to get soaking wet. So he's pretty smart. Nick goes and finds a big board, okay, a big piece of wood in the back of the school, and holds it up in front of his face. So hold up the big board in front of your face. All right, facing me. Perfect. Awesome. Like we're going to do karate chop or something. Okay. So he's got the board in front of his face. I've got the hose with the water coming out. Now I'm spinning around in a circle. What is going to happen when I go past him with that water? What's it going to do? It's going to bounce off the board, come back, and hit me in the face and get me all wet instead of getting him all wet. That's the way the radar works. Pretend like I'm the radar with that invisible beam coming out of the radar and I'm spinning around. Nick is like the cloud with the rain in it. When that invisible beam goes past the cloud, it bounces off the rain inside the cloud, it bounces back to the radar, and then it's sent through all the computers to my computer screen as big green blobs. That way I can see how far away that rain is. Is it way back in Texas? Or is it right down the road? I can also watch it over time and see how fast it's moving. Is it moving really, really slow toward the radar and it's going to take 2 days to get here? Or is it moving really, really fast and it's going to be here in 5 minutes? So I can tell all those things just by looking at that beam that bounces off the rain and bounces back to the radar. Cool, huh? All right, Nick, thank you. You may have a seat. Let's give Nick a hand. So now, let's say I go to my radar and I look and guess what I see over by Tampa? Big green blobs all over by this front and in all these clouds. So now is my forecast going to be just for clouds in Apopka later today? No. What am I going to add to my forecast for later today? Probably some rain, that's right. Now, maybe the rain will fall apart before it gets here. Maybe the rain will move in a different direction. There are some other things I have to look at, but one of the first things I do to figure out if it's going to be wet or dry is I use my tool, which is the radar, to see where the rain is and where the rain's headed. Seems pretty easy, don't you think? Yeah. I have my questions. Will it be sunny or cloudy, wet or dry, hot or cold? I have the answers or the way to figure out my questions, which is the time for us to review. So everybody together now, we're going to say it out loud. What was it that I used to figure out if it's going to be hot or cold? I use cold fronts and warm fronts. What do I use to figure out if it's going to be sunny or cloudy? Satellite. And how about wet or dry? Radar. Good, you got it? Let's try it one more time. What do I use to figure out if it's going to be hot or cold? Cold fronts and warm fronts. What do I use to figure out if it's going to be sunny or cloudy? Satellite. And how about wet or dry? Radar. Very good. I have my instruments and my tools, the information that I learned when I went to college. Well, if it's so easy, why is it that sometimes I'm wrong? I know you've said it before. I know you've heard your parents say it. I know you've heard your teachers say it. Oh, Amy said it was going to be sunny all day and it rained at my house. Or Amy said it was going to rain today and I didn't get one drop. Why does that happen? It's not because I lie. It's not because I make mistakes. It's not because the radar broke or something like that. Something else is going on that makes me wrong sometimes, not every day, not all the time, but once in a while I get the forecast wrong. Why do you think that is? Yes? Well, no, usually I don't get mixed up with another state. Hopefully I don't do that. There's probably something else going on that would make me wrong once in a while. What do you think is happening? Uh-huh. Well, that's a good answer. I guessed. A weather forecast is a weather prediction. It's a weather guess. Now, it's not a complete guess. It's not like I just threw a dart at the dartboard and said, okay, I think I'm going to say it's going to be cold today and just make it up. I actually base it in science, and I base it on these things that I know about what's happening with the weather. But something else is going on that makes me get the weather wrong once in a while. What do you think is going on? Yes? What's going in a different direction? The rain, or the clouds, or the storms, or something about the weather changes, right? If you forget all the stuff that we talked about today, and you don't remember any of these questions or any of these tools, there is one thing that you must remember. It is super, super important, and it's very important when it comes to doing my job. It's only 3 words, super easy. I know you can remember it, and it goes like this. That weather constantly, good, changes. Weather constantly changes. Does the earth just stand still? No. What does the earth do? It spins around. And not only does the earth spin around, what does the earth spin around? The sun, that's right. The sun is in the middle and all the planets are around it moving. And so that means that everything that makes up the weather is constantly moving and constantly changing. The wind is always blowing, the storms are always moving, the rain is always moving, the hot and cold air is always moving, the cold fronts, the warm fronts, everything that makes up the weather is constantly moving and constantly changing. So, if I got the forecast wrong every single day, I would probably get fired. But if I get the forecast wrong once in a while, I'm not going to get fired because being wrong is part of being a meteorologist. If you're the kind of person that likes to be right all the time, you probably don't want to do this for a job because sometimes I'm wrong. It's the part of my job that I don't like for sure. And if I am wrong, I try to go back and figure out, okay, what changed? What made it different so that I did get the forecast wrong? If you live to be 100 years old, and even if you're as smart as Albert Einstein, or the smartest person you can think of, and even if computers get to be super, super smart and super technologically advanced, you still will not be able to find a weather forecaster who can get the forecast 100% right 100% of the time. It just can't be done. And why is that? Because weather constantly changes. Very good. You guys are awesome listeners. We have some time left, so I would love to answer your questions. Before we do questions, though, if you have like 2 or 3 questions, if you can just kind of pick your favorite one question, and then I will try to answer that. And then once you answer your question, can you please leave your hand down, because I can't remember who asked and who didn't, and I want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Also, one other thing, I think since you guys are big 2nd graders, I'm pretty sure you're cool with what a question is. I know I don't have to tell you that, but if you want to tell me a story or about something that happened to you one time in the weather, if you can wait until afterwards, because I want this time to just be a time for if you would like to know something about me or about the weather. You can ask about my job, you can ask about the news, you can ask about the weather, you can ask about anything you want to know, and I'll do my best to try to answer, okay? And let's talk nice and loud so I can hear your question too, because with the fans it's a little bit noisy up here and kind of hard to hear, okay? Okay, who's first? Yes, sir.
How do you know, like, if there's, like, the hurricanes that are coming or tornadoes?
How do we know if hurricanes or tornadoes are coming? Very good question. For hurricanes, I actually use the satellites, which is something we talked about. We can watch hurricanes for a very long time because we have satellites all over the world. And so we can see clouds form even way off the coast of Africa, 3,000 miles away from Florida, and we can watch it move across the Atlantic. Now, sometimes hurricanes will form right by Florida, but usually we know what's going on in the atmosphere, and so we know that there may be something that forms, and so we try to let people know that, hey, this is an area that we're watching and we're letting you know. The tornadoes are a little bit different. Those we don't usually have as much notice on, but the tornadoes we track on the radar. Now, the radar, how many of you have heard Doppler radar? Have you ever heard the word Doppler with the radar? Some of you on TV maybe. Doppler is something that basically shows the direction that the rain is moving. So for instance, let's say we're looking at the radar and we see the rain coming down inside a storm like this, okay, right? It's falling from the sky down to the ground. But what if I look at the radar and I see the rain going like this, sideways inside of a cloud? What do you think is going on inside that cloud? What do you think it's telling me about the weather? Yes?
That when it's raining, sometimes it goes sideways.
And why? What makes it do that? If you saw the rain going sideways, what would you think? Something's happening. What do you think it is? Yes? The wind's blowing it, exactly. If we look up inside a thunderstorm and we start to see the rain going like this, That means the wind is going like this, and that is the very beginnings of a tornado. When the wind starts spinning like this, that gives us, okay, we need to watch the storm because there might be a tornado. And then if it gets strong enough, if that swirling wind can come out of the back of the storm and come all the way down and touch the ground, that's when we would call it a tornado. So good. I use satellites and radars with hurricanes and also with tornadoes, trying to find them and decide where they're going to be. Yes, next question. Want me to come back to you? I'll come back. Okay, you remember and I'll come back. Yes. Have I ever what? I can't hear you. Have I ever seen a whale? I know that's not what you said. Oh, the radar? Have I ever seen the radar? Yes, I have. I don't see it very often, though, because they don't open that big dome. Usually what happens is somebody climbs that tower, an engineer or somebody who fixes it, they climb up the tower and they go up inside the dome. So they don't actually take the dome off all the time. So I've only seen it when it's been being installed before. So you don't get to see it very much. Yes? Does the sun and the moon move? Do they? That's a tricky one. Okay. Okay. Yes and no. If you said yes, you're right. If you said no, you're right. The sun doesn't move, but the planets move, so that means the Earth moves around the sun, and then the moon rotates around the Earth. So the moon is moving and the Earth is moving. The sun is not, but it looks like to us the sun is moving, doesn't it? Because as the Earth moves, the sun goes up and it goes down, and then it comes up the next day and it goes down at night, and it keeps looking like it's moving. So even though the sun isn't really moving, it looks like to us it is. And so that is another thing. The sun is what helps cause the weather and helps heat the Earth. Yes? What if somebody gets fired, like if they do the weather and they get fired? Well, it's just like any other job. You could get fired just like you could from your job. Like if they're late, well, I guess if you were late lots of times, just like at any job, you would probably get fired. Most of us like our jobs so much, though, that we're not going to be late. We want to be there.
And do you see, like sometimes you see the water spinning in the ocean? Like
Yes. Yes, if in a hurricane, yes. What we're really doing, though, we're not looking at the water, we're looking at the clouds. So what we see is up above the ocean surface where the clouds are spinning around. That's the pictures that we see of the hurricane. Mrs. Barley, what time do we need to be done? 2:45. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. There's a couple things I want to do at the very end as well. So let's do a couple more questions. Did you ever remember yours? Yes, go ahead.
What if the things get out of the boat and if you're doing the news, what if it doesn't work? Like the storm is going too big and hard, like hail?
With the radar?
Yeah, and then it breaks, and then like you can't hear what the ships can't hear what you're saying. Like with those things that they have.
I think you're thinking of a different kind of radar, yes, because there are ships that use sonar and ships that use radar. There's airplanes. Police officers use radar, too, a type of radar to see how fast you're going, right? Because they watch your speeding car go by, and they can tell as your car moves closer to the radar how fast you're going. It's the same kind of thing with my weather radar, but it's a little bit different. But if the radar's broken, we actually have other ones around Florida. There's a big radar that at the National Weather Service in Melbourne. There's one in Jacksonville. There's one in Tampa. There's one down in Miami. So if ours breaks at Channel 2 while we're getting it fixed, we have other radars that we can use. So we always have the information available to us. Okay? Okay, a couple more questions. Yes?
Have you ever been on one of those airplanes that will fly into like the hurricane?
I have been in a Hurricane Hunter airplane. I did fly in it, but actually not during a hurricane. I flew on a beautiful sunny day one time. So I still have not flown in a hurricane, but that's on my to-do list. Yes? How come we're not spinning? Because it's happening so slow that we just don't even realize it. But that is a great question. And as you get in older grades in your science class, you're going to learn more about why that happens. And it's a really cool thing what happens on the Earth. Okay, let's get a couple more from this side. Yes?
Can you feel the thing that's shooting from the radar?
Can you feel the beam shooting out from the radar? No. No, but you could get hurt if you got in front of it. But remember, the radar's way up high on the tower and it shoots up into the sky. So it doesn't shoot down at the ground. It doesn't shoot at any people or buildings or trees or down at the ground. It's shooting up in the sky to see the clouds and the rain. And if an airplane flew through it, it wouldn't be hurt or anything by it. So, okay, I know there's so many more questions. I'm so sorry we can't get to all of them. Please, if you want to send me an email, you can do that and ask me your questions. I will be glad to try to answer them if I can. The last thing I want to do, and this is going to be tough, so I need you to, as quietly and as quickly as you can, scooch next to your neighbor to the center of the room, and I think your teachers are maybe going to pull a few of you out that maybe can't be part of our picture. But I'm going to take a picture of you guys and put it on TV tomorrow morning, okay? So you need to watch. You gotta listen.
I was singing quickly and quietly to your neighbor. Yeah, the quickly part, we listen to quietly.
Yeah, this is fine. Okay. But I'm gonna record, I always do. I'm gonna record audio too, so I do need him to be quiet.
Alright, you need to be facing, looking at Mrs. Sweezey. We're not looking at the cameras. Look this way, please.
Look over here so I can tell you when it's gonna be on, okay?
Kaylee. No, ma'am.
I'm gonna put it on our website, so you can go to WESH, W-E-S-H, WESH.com, and see this on the internet if you miss it on TV. But you can also see it tomorrow morning between 6 and 7 a.m. If it's too early, see if you can set the VCR, set the TiVo, and catch it. And if not, it will be on our website, WESH.com, okay?
Alright, before we can start, you need to be on your bottom, and you need to be quiet, because she's also going to be videotaping you. So it needs to be quiet and on your bottom.
Off the steps.
And off the steps.
Elizabeth, off the steps. Great.
It's kind of dark. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, here we go.
And down at the bottom.
On your bottom.
Are we ready?
Good.
Okay, here we go. These are the awesome second graders at Wolf Lake Elementary School in Apopka. And what's your favorite channel? Awesome job. Thanks, guys.